Okay, for today's lesson, we will having our lesson 3 in caregiving, which is practice occupational health and safety procedure. So here we will be identify different hazard and risks that we may encounter during our job. Next, determine hazard and indicators in the workplace. Then we can determine the effects of hazard and follow health and safety procedures. So let's proceed to the first one, which is hazard and risk. Ayan. So lagi natin sinasabi na when we say pag nandyan ang hazard, laging nandyan ang risk. What is hazard? Hazard is anything that may cause harm to an individual, such as chemicals, electricity, open drawers, and inadequate ventilation. Ayan, lalo na sa caregiving, mostly yung mga napapahamak, yung mga caregivers natin. Ayan, to promote safety and precaution for that, you need to be able to know ano nga ba yung magiging effect o magiging pwedeng ikapahamak natin when the hazard is laging nandyan sa ating paligid. Ayan, even hindi natin sila nakikita, when we say hazard, this is an unseen incident na hindi natin hindi natin nakikita pero possible na mangyari sa atin. Next, risk is the possibility that somebody could be harmed by this and other hazard and the indication of how serious the harm can be. Ayan, so what will be our solution to escape or to eliminate those hazard is that occupational health and safety natin. So when we say occupational health and safety, tinutukoy dito kung paano natin mapapanatiliin na maging ligtas while we are working in our working hours. Next, occupational health and safety is the campaign and maintenance of the well-being of workers in every occupation. Ayan, lagi naman sa lahat ng trabaho na ginagawa natin, we need to put this always in our mind that occupational health and safety procedure must be in top. Ayan. So next, it talks about providing a safe working environment to achieve an injury-free workplace and a healthy atmosphere that protects every worker against illness. Ayan. So napaka-importante niyan. So without knowing na masasaktan ka sa bagay na ganito, ayan, dapat alam mo yung mga precautions and health and safety procedures for that. So, in caregiving, we have different kinds of hazard. So, isa-isahin natin sila. So, we have a physical hazard. So, when we say physical hazard are the most occurrences in the workplace. Ayan, example, you're about to bring a water dun sa mismong patient mo, kaso natapon mo siya in the floor. Ayan, through the slip, trips, and fall, pwede tayong maaksidente, and that is an example of physical hazard. They are usually easy to detect. However, very often are neglected because people are too accustomed to them. Another reason may be due to lack of knowledge of people do not see situations as hazard. Ayan, so as a caregiver, hindi lang dapat yung sarili natin yung binabantayan natin through that hazard. Dapat binabantayan din natin yung patient, what are the possible na mangyari dun sa mismong sitwasyon niya. Ayan, so example of physical hazard is may be exposed to electrical hazard. Ayan, lalo na yung example, you are caring mga children or bata lang sila. Ayan, electrical hazard possible na mangyari dun sa pinagtatrabahuhan mo. So, pag di na natin ginagamit yung mga bagay na pinagagamitan or ginagamitan ng kuryente or electricity, you may unplug them immediately. So, electrical hazard even in a daycare institution of nursing homes where care should be the utmost concern, improper wiring and frayed cords may still go unnoticed. Misuse of electrical equipment also happens in any time of work environment. Ayan, so, kung hindi naman din gagamitin yung bagay na to, we can unplug them immediately. Next, So, here are the some of the effects in physical hazard. So, we may encounter fire, decreased efficiency, annoyance, and falls. Next, another physical hazard that we may encounter is the biological hazard. So, what is this? So, when we say biological, come from working with animals, people, or infectious materials. This is therefore one of the most common hazard that caregiver faces. So, ito yung mga bacteria na pwede nating makuha due to dun sa mismong animals and iba pang inaalagaan man natin. Ayan, so this is therefore one of the most common hazard that a caregiver faces. If one working in a daycare, hospital, hotel laundry, nursing home, laboratories, she may expose to biological hazard. Lalo na pag nagbabantay tayo ng mga matatanda, ganyan, there are lots of chemicals na pwedeng pumasok, ma-encounter natin, and we can expose to those hazard. Ayan, to eliminate that, we may use different PPEs which can prevent yung ma-expose tayo sa ganon. Ayan, so another example of physical hazard that a caregiver may expose to, so blood or other body fluids, ayan, is an example of biological hazard din yun. Fungi, just like what I've said, mga bacteria, and viruses. Ano pa ba? Yung mga contaminated washes, and even yung mga ginagamit nila, it is already contaminated do sa mga bacteria or mga biological hazards. So, to prevent that, we may use PPEs. Ayan. Next, some of the effects of biological hazard. Ano pwede nating makuha through this hazard? So, we may encounter infections, ano pa, skin irritations, allergy, tuberculosis, and AIDS. Ayan. So, to prevent this, ayan, we should wear PPEs. Next, we have the third hazard, which is the ergonomic, occur when a caregiver nature of work, body position, and working condition put pressure on her body. It is difficult to spot this type of hazard because caregiver do not immediately notice the effect of their bodies. At first, sore muscles may be experienced, but long-term exposure to this type of hazard can cause musculoskeletal problems. Ayan. So, paano nga ba yung mga example? Ano nga ba yung mga example here in ergonomic hazard? So, performing tasks that require lifting heavy loads. Ayan. So, if you are carry things na mabibigat, ayan, that is can cause ergonomic hazard. Next, too much bending and reaching. Ayan. Next, standing for long periods of times. Ayan, kung napapansin nyo, nangangalay tayo minsan. Ayan, so that is, na-expose tayo in this kind of hazard. Holding body parts for long period of time. Awkward movements, especially if they are repetitive. Next, repeating the same movements over and over. Ayan, so to eliminate or prevent na mangyari ito sa atin, we may use yung proper technique, yung mga different tama na position na dapat nating ginagawa. Example, we may carry things or heavy loads, ayan, mabibigat. Ayan, so instead of maglift tayo, yung proper ng pagtayo or pagkuha ng mismong gamit na kukuhanin natin, dapat maayos. Next, effects of ergonomic hazard, we may encounter pain in the shoulders, ayan, mga back injury, too much impact on wrists and hands, numbness in some parts of the body, ayan. Next, we have next hazard, which is chemical. Ayan, lalo na yung mga vitamina na pinapainom natin sa ating mga patients. Normally, doon tayo nakakakuha ng mga chemicals. Ano pa ba yung mga ginagamit natin, detergents or any substance inside the house while we are working, ayan, can cause chemical hazard. So, what is chemical hazard? These are present when a workers exposed to any chemical preparations in the workplace in any form, solid, liquid, or glass. Ayan. Or gas. So, There may be chemicals which are safe, but same caregivers who are sensitive to solution may cause skin irritation, illness, breathing problems. Ayan, so napaka-importante natin to know what kind of chemicals na pwede nating ikapahamak. So, example of this, liquids like cleaning agents, yung mga detergents, mga solvent cleaners, and many more. What else? Yung mga disinfecting solution. Yan. Next, effects of chemical hazard. Ano pwede yung mangyari sa atin if we expose in this kind of hazard? So, we can have or get lung diseases, difficulty in breathing, ayan, allergy, and ayan, if you know someone that is allergic and have an asthma, I don't think they will need this job, ayan. So, to eliminate that, ayan, hindi tayo kailangan ma-expose sa mga different kinds of hazard. Ayan, next, psychological hazard. Take place when a caregiver's works environment become stressful and demanding. Ayan. So, example of psychological hazard na pwede natin, yung mga burnout, mga unreasonable expectation from patients and clients. What else? Mga verbal abuse. Ayan. Next, what else? Unreasonable expectation from supervisors and management. So, napaka-importante natin malaman ano nga ba yung nagkukos ng hazard na ganyan. Ayan. So, recognizing hazard and risk in the workplace. Ayan, kahit hindi natin nakikita, dapat alam natin kung ano yung mga solution for that. Ayan, to eliminate those hazard, we may need, ayan, to learn or study those things. Ayan, hazard and risks vary from one workplace to another, even in daycare or nursing homes, where work routines may be the same. Ayan. So, the good news is hazard and risk can be prevented. Ayan, lagi naman natin sa lahat nga ng bagay, meron tayong solution. Ayan, what if, dun pa sa mga hazard na pwedeng mangyari during working hours? Ayan, before thinking about what control measures are needed, first a caregiver has to know whether there are health and safety problems in her workplace. Ayan, so you are able to know, ikaw mismo na caregiver, dapat malaman mo kung safe pa ba. Ayan, before ka pumasok dito sa trabaho na to, are they have an adequate ayan, yung mga ventilation, yung mga ganon, fire exit, ayan. So, ayan. So, how can someone identify hazard in the workplace? The following are some ways for a caregiver to determine health and safety problems. Ayan. So, number 1, a caregiver should observe the workplace. Ayan. So, is this workplace safety for me? Ayan. Next, a caregiver may examine complaints from his or her co-workers. Ayan. We can ask someone or yung mga co-workers natin if this place really suits to you. Ganon. So, a caregiver should check accident records. Ayan. You have the ability or able to know kung ano nga ba yung nangyayari inside your workplace. Next, a caregiver should examine charts and result. Ayan. Palagi tayong nagtatanong. Ayan. Next, a caregiver may use checklists and inspect in the workplace. Ayan. Next, a caregiver may study reports or any other vital information about the nursing home. Ayan. Next, evaluating and controlling hazard and risk. After we learn yung mga different solution for escaping or for refusing or eliminating control, I mean hazard and risk, ayan, paano natin sila mai-evaluate? Ayan, so once you recognize a hazard in the workplace, then you can proceed with risk assessment. So that is focusing on the risks that really matter in the workplace. So evaluating hazard and risk is the process of determining the level of risk. Kung gaano nga ba siya kalakas o maging malaki ang effect niya dun sa body o dun sa taong nagtatrabaho mismo dun sa workplace na yon. Ayan. So, so a person identifying the risk of harm or injury from a hazard in a nursing home or daycare, Ayan, should consider this question. So, how likely it is that hazard will cause harm? Number 2, how serious that harm is likely to be? And how often workers are exposed? Ayan, you are the one who able to know yung mga different kinds of hazard wherein pwede natin silang ma-prevent. Ayan. So next, how we control hazard and risk. It is possible that the workplace hazard can be controlled by a variety of methods. Of course, ayan. So there are very reasons with why hazard should be controlled is to prevent workers from being exposed to occupational hazard. Ayan, when we speak of controlling hazard and risk, it means setting of the same measure that will solve the trouble most successfully. Ayan, so paano natin sila mako-control? Syempre, yung mga personal protective equipment must be worn at all times. Ayan. So there are five major categories of control measures: elimination, substitution, engineering controls, administrative controls, and personal protective equipment. So let's start with eliminating. So when we say eliminating, nagbabawas tayo, nag-aalis. Ayan. A hazard means removing it completely. Ayan. Paano yun mangyayari? Ayan. So, if you are able to know, mangyayari yung ganito. So, you should consider that. Ayan. So, we can eliminate. Nasa sa atin din yun. Next, substitution is the replacing or substituting a hazardous agent to work process with a less dangerous one. Next, an engineering control may mean changing a piece of machinery, for example, using proper machine guards. Ayan. Next, an administrative control may mean working a limited numbers of hours in hazardous areas is an example of an administrative control. Ayan. So, example dito yung mga job rotation. Ayan. Next, yung mga personal protective equipment. Kahit saan namang trabaho, they have this. Ayan. So, includes ear and eye protection, mask, respirators, and mga protective clothing. Ayan. So, let us proceed to the practical ways to prevent hazard and risk. Ayan. Una, a closer look at electricity. What are the possible problems that I encounter when I exposed to this kind of hazard? Ayan. So, dapat you should know that. So, as common sense dictates, you have to ensure that all electrical equipment you use is in good condition. Ayan, kung hindi proper ventilated yung lugar na pinagtatrabahuhan mo, then you should go. Next, check electrical cords and make sure they are not frayed. Ayan. Your hand should be dry before attempting to use any electrical equipment. Do not attempt to use fuses unless you know what you are doing. Ayan. Next, do not turn on all appliances at the same time just because you want to save time. Ayan. Next, the best way to escape in this kind of hazard, ayan. Yung una, dapat we should use personal protective equipment. So, we can wear gown, wear mask, wear gloves. Ano pa ba? Yung mga surgical gown dapat laging nandyan. Ayan. So, surgical apron also you may use. Ayan. Ano pa ba? Yung mga medical mask, gloves, and many more. Ayan. So, next, disposal of healthcare waste tayo. So, human waste product, obviously, this waste should be finished or flushed down the toilet. Ayan, yung mga pinaggamitan ng mga tao. Ayan, you should flush them in a toilet. Ano pa ba? Yung mga bloody and bloody fluids. Ayan, we may flush down also that in the toilet. Ayan, next, if clothes are contaminated, they should be washed separately using hot water. Next, yung mga needles natin, ayan, lalo na for the injections, ayan, so pag gano'n na-expose na sila sa chemicals, so you should wash or throw them away. Next, yung mga medical equipment natin na expose from different kinds of substance, dapat nakakatabi or nakadispose sila ng maayos. Next, importante din na malaman na para hindi tayo ma-expose sa bagay na to, we need to consider proper hand washing. So, before, after work, ayan, we should clean our hands. Ayan, so we need to prepare, yan, yung mga caregiver, piniprepare nila lahat. Ayan, to expose, para hindi tayo ma-expose sa ganitong hazard, ayan, you should know the proper hand washing. Ayan. Ayan, so that will be our lesson 3. It is all about hazard and risk. Let me have our summary. Ayan, so when we say hazard, laging nandyan yung risk natin. Ayan, yung mga hazard, we may encounter physical, chemical, ergonomic, psychological, and many more hazard during working hour, lalo na if you are a caregiver. Ayan, hindi lang basta-basta, you're just about to care any person, ayan. Pero dapat yung sarili mo din, inaalagaan mo siya. Ayan, so that will be the end of our lesson. Ayan, hope you learned something from me. Thank you for listening.